Hey, for this next section of GBLP, we're going to be covering something really fun. Honestly, one of my favorite areas of business and entrepreneurship, which is the brainstorming kind of ideation, problem solving aspect of it, and really just that creative collaboration that you need to have inside of a team in order to be more effective and get more out of your team. Make sure you're getting all of the juice out of that, out of your team, out of those different ideas, making sure you're not leaving any stone unturned when it comes to that brainstorming process. So really excited for it. Like I said, one of my favorite things. I'm going to cover some kind of key concepts when it comes to the creative process, some things that I think are important to understand about it, different types of innovation and those kind of things, as well as just some basic tips for as you go through this brainstorming process with your team. And then I also got some specific tools for you to use that might help you to get things unjammed with your team to get those ideas out. And then last, we're going to talk about kind of that continued creativity. So stick around to the end. Going to talk about what it takes to sustain this creative process, not just have that one spark of genius, that one hit wonder, and then nothing after that. Because what's the point of that, right? Unless it's a pretty good song. But anyway, so we'll go through all of that, starting off with one of the more interesting things, I think, which is the different types of innovation, different types of creativity. And I think there are two buckets that I generally put these into, which is the explosive innovation, that really rapid, game changing, something that, just vertical like that. It is a game changer, and it is that explosive innovation comes out of nowhere seemingly and is so much bigger than you could even imagine. And there's incremental innovation, which is just kind of chipping away at the problem set, getting better and better and better. And both of these are tools that you can use inside of your business. And there's two different approaches for them. So, talking about brainstorming, that is more the explosive side of the innovation, right? The thing that we all want that's just going to change our business completely. And one of the key things to understand when it comes to explosive innovation is that it comes from young people. And not just people that are literally young, young in age, but young in career, young in skill set, even is another way you could look at it. And the reason that age is important is because they're naive. And they're naive in the sense that they're willing to ask stupid questions. They're willing to come up with bad ideas that aren't actually bad ideas, that are actually genius, but they just don't correspond to the kind of the ground rules that somebody would have if they'd been in that job for a very long time. This is uh, one of those things where it's like you're just kind of haphazardly throwing things together because you genuinely don't know any better, and you happen to see something or combine something, synthesize something that people would generally ignore because they think it goes against one of those ground rules, like I kind of talked about. So those explosive forms of innovation are really good, and that's going to come from people who are young in that field, young in that area of study. And so what that means for you as a leader is, one, you want to be bringing in some new talents and new blood every now and then to keep things moving, make sure you're keeping that younger perspective for other reasons, but then also because they can come in with those stupid ideas sometimes that can be really effective. But also, this is where cross training can be really important, of coming in and learning how different people in your team operate and giving those different people a chance to be young at a different category. What I mean by that is, you take somebody from sales, you bring them into a marketing meeting, and they might not understand all the ground rules of marketing and all of the vocab words, buzzwords, those kind of things. That's usually the problem that keeps people out of those kind of meetings, right? But when you don't have the buzzwords and you don't have those kind of basic rules, sometimes you come with a whole new idea. And so that cross training is one way that you can really implement this and try to get some of that explosive innovation from your team by getting that cross training and collaboration there. The incremental training, this is the, like, your life's work is going towards something. And yes, I invented the fastest car ever, but it took me my whole life. I was just chipping away at it, always tweaking little things, trying to get better at it. The way that you build this into your team, one, of course, is having people that are around a long time. Longevity inside of a problem set can help a lot when it comes to incremental problem solving and incremental innovations like this. But then the other key there is that as you go through and you kind of design your own processes, you want to have an emphasis on maintenance, meaning you are spending time making sure things are working and rehashing those kind of old problem sets, things that you've already solved maybe. And by doing that, you're able to find those little changes, those marginal changes that can give you some big results in the big picture of things. So incremental kind, just looking for those slight marginal improvements. Explosive innovation, looking for that brand new idea. One of the kind of little concepts, I guess, that I wanted to make sure I touched on prepping for this video is the idea of, a bad idea, a stupid idea. It's very easy for a boss to say that there are no bad ideas. Come on, just blurt it out. I can also tell you, if you've been in one of those rooms and you've thrown out what is a bad idea, sometimes the glares you get from people and the tone you get from people like that really is speaking the exact opposite to the room than what the boss said, that you don't actually want those bad ideas. And so it's a really tricky thing as a leader to not just say that you want those bad ideas, but really to encourage them. And to me, that goes into framing, which is one thing we'll talk about a little bit later. But framing these questions to your team in a way that is going to get them to contribute those bad ideas, those stupid ideas. And one of my favorite little tricks for that is to give a kind of arbitrary number for the amount of ideas that you need. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're solving a problem and you can come up with 2 or 3 pretty good solutions, right? And then people just stop because nothing else really makes sense. We'll be like, okay, well, give me 4 more. And just force it home of hey, I need 4 more solutions, and these will not necessarily work. But by kind of forcing those bad solutions to come out, usually what happens is, as you go through that process, you're trying to come up with a solution set, right? And you go, okay, well, here we need to, shoot, I'm looking outside. I got a patio I just built, right? So we need to build a patio, right? Well, one option is we could just not build the patio. We could put everything on the ground there. Okay, well, that's not really that much of a solution, but it is thinking there. And then that bad idea, even though it is a bad idea, might spark something from someone else inside of the group. Go, hey, I know we can't not have a foundation, but when he said that, it got me thinking, we are in Arizona, and the way that our soil is, there is a chance we could just compact what we have there, water it, tamp it, get it down, and then that could be the foundation. Maybe we don't have to spend money on materials for the patio. And, you can kind of go down that rabbit hole, right? One easy example there, of course. But the idea being that as you bring up those bad ideas, because it reframes the problem set in such a different way, even if that idea is a bad idea, it is a stupid idea, it can help to reframe that problem set for someone else on the team who then might be able to, from that new perspective, come up with a better solution, right? So even those stupid ideas can lead to really good ideas. So that's the key there. Don't just talk about wanting those, no bad ideas when you're brainstorming, but actually encourage people to give you those bad ideas. And sometimes that means, hey, give me 5 ideas, and I know you only got 1 good one, so you're going to give me some bad ones along the way, right? The next piece, and this is just a little bit of the foundation for brainstorming inside of a team environment, is making sure that you are doing it in a high energy setting. You don't want to be brainstorming at 8 a.m. on a Monday, dragging everyone into a conference room and really just going, okay, now I need 10 ideas, and nobody's had their coffee yet, and they're, bored, they're bored, their mind is wandering, all those kind of different things that happen when you don't have a good environment. We talk about, and I'm not going to go completely into this because we got other videos on it, but energy levels. If you are in a high energy level, that highest energy level is the just actually second to last, but the visionary, right? Where you just see solutions all around you. You're seeing solutions to problems you don't even see yet, right? That's the energy level you need from your team when you get into this brainstorming session. That's where you come up with those crazy ideas that are just crazy enough to work, and all those kind of things there that we kind of joke about when it comes to brainstorming. You have to have a high energy level, because I can tell you what, if you're at a 2 or 3 on the energy levels, and you go in and somebody gives you the bad idea, you're going to scoff at them. You're going to call it stupid. You're going to be really negative towards them. And even if it is an idea that isn't even that stupid, you're going to be you're going to be really put off by any other idea because you are in that victim mentality, right? So the energy level that you carry into this and the energy level you get out of your team matters. So you want to plan it in an environment that is, maybe a little bit more exciting. Keep thinking of it's like being in school and they're like, okay, we're going to have class outside. Same class, but we're outside. Much better, right? Little things like that, making sure you're timing it around meals and those kind of things. There's lots of different ways you go about it, but just making sure that you are thinking about the energy that people are bringing into the brainstorming session. That's really important there. The next piece is a little bit of a framing exercise, like I kind of talked about earlier. We want to reframe the problem to your team. And one of the ways that I think is really effective at doing that is talking about the ideal, the perfect, the fantasy land, I like to call it. And what this means is that you are completely reframing the problem set. We don't want reality. We want fantasy land. In a magic world where you get everything that you want, what does your role inside of this business look like? What does the ideal day for you look like? When are you going to be working? What kind of things are you going to be doing? Reframing things towards that ideal, even if you never hit that perfect, even if it doesn't actually happen, what it does is it gives you a new perspective on things. In a perfect world, this is exactly what it looked like. In theory, this is how things would go. Now we kind of have something to work towards, and we might not be able to ever get to that point where in theory becomes in reality, but it does reframe our problem set. And that's a really good way, again, to get those creative solutions that you might not think of when you're constrained in reality. One of my favorite ways to literally ask this to people is like, what is your magic wand solution for this? If you could magically just change something, we're talking some political issue, and it's like, what would you do? And it's like, I would like to magically give people a little bit more self-control. And it's like, yes, that doesn't necessarily give us an actionable step, but it does identify something that's really interesting to that problem set, which is the idea of the individual self-control. Can you magic wand that problem away? Well, of course not. How are we going to get people to have more self-control? That's a whole another video. But the idea being, by reframing that problem set, now we've come up with something that might actually be the real problem there, so that if we were able to address it, we can make that a lasting solution rather than just putting a Band-Aid on things. So hope that example makes sense. Always weird using abstract political examples without trying to be too specific and hurt anyone's feelings, of course, there. But having that ideal, having that fantasy, and that magic wand solution can help to reframe the problem in a way that is going to bring out some of those new ideas. One of the other ways that you can reframe that problem is a pre-mortem. And this is a really good exercise if you have a big project coming up, big event, big launch, anything like that. And you can kind of go through and use this pre-mortem with your team. And again, it's another little framing trick where you are reframing things. And instead of trying to get the positive, like we've been talking about with a lot of the brainstorming, you're reframing it towards the negative. I want all of the problems that you see, as many problems as you can come up with. And what the basic process for the pre-mortem is, and if needed, I can record another video and go further into depth into this later on. But the basic idea behind a pre-mortem goes, if you think about, let's say, working in a hospital, right? You go into a surgery. Before a surgery, if I'm part of that surgical team, you can show I'm about to show my medical knowledge because I don't have much. But I'm part of that surgical team. We're going in, and the boss, the main surgeon, chief surgeon, whatever the heck you call him, he comes in and he goes, "Okay, Camden, what's going to go wrong in there?" "Nothing, sir. You got it. You're the best." Of course I'm going to respond like that. Why would I reframe everything negatively? That's on me to tell my boss that he's going to mess up his job. He's not a great surgeon or something like that. Doesn't make any sense. So what happens is, because we're putting the onus on the team members to make that jump from positive to negative, from a success to failure, now they're not going to do it because that's not something that they feel like they really want from us. It puts them in a crappy situation where they are the ones who are jumping to the negative, right? Showing doubt in the mission. And a lot of leaders don't like that. They don't want that doubt. And so what you do is you reframe it. Instead of saying, okay, hey, post-mortem, we already had the surgery, and boss, you messed up and you killed a guy or whatever it is, something went wrong with the surgery and there's an infection and blood pressure drops, and okay, there's your medical terms. But as you go through, then it's like you can go back and go, I saw you didn't wash your hands. It's like, yeah, that was a pretty obvious thing, or we didn't have this tool, or whatever it is. And now that things are done, it's very easy to look back and go, oh, that was a negative thing. And that same person that you asked on your team, hey, what could go wrong with this surgery, that said, oh, nothing, boss, you're the best, they were going, I saw a guy not wash his hands, or, oh, I realized we didn't have this tool, we had the wrong size or something, whatever it was, right? That person saw those things because they're paying attention, because they're good at their job. But because of the way you ask the question, the ideas don't come out like that, those negative ideas, which help us to solve that problem. So the pre-mortem idea, instead of having the post-mortem, person's already dead, what are we going to do about it, what went wrong? The pre-mortem is designed to flip that. So you go into your team, your same surgical team, and you say, hey, close your eyes. Picture yourself. This is 4 hours later after the surgery, and we failed. Guy died. What went wrong that led to that failure? Come up with as many ideas as you can of negative things that are going wrong now, or could go wrong, that could lead to that potential failure. It already failed. It's not on you to make it negative. We already failed. Now give me all the negativity. And what that does is it takes that onus away from the team member to flip it to the negative. We're already in the negative. We're already in that negative headspace, and you're asking for all the problems. So now, instead of feeling like I'm doing a disservice to the team by bringing up a problem, like I'm doubting the mission, Now I'm poking holes in it. And then we as a team can go, okay, hey, well, obviously it's a pre-mortem, not a post-mortem. So this hasn't happened yet. Now we can start to fix some of these things. We can go make sure that guy washes his hands, get the right tools, whatever it is, right? You are able to identify all of these problems that were inside of your solution that were going to mess up your plans, mess up your launch, again, whatever it is. And because you've reframed into that negative mindset for your team, that negative perspective actually is a better way of putting it, you are getting more of those problems, and therefore you're able to solve more of those problems. So I think that's a really important tool to help to get those more negative ideas out and help to frame the problem set in that more negative way that then is going to help you to solve it in the big picture, rather than trying to act like the plan is perfect, everything's going to go great, because we know it's not. So you have to make sure you're flipping that for the team. Don't make them doubt it. All right. And last thing I wanted to talk about is the continued creativity. I kind of made the joke about the one-hit wonder, right? Well, the question is, if you write your one-hit wonder, you get your big success, your breakout, your 10-year overnight success, whatever it is, you blow up like that, then now what? And what happens a lot, and the kind of pitfall that a lot of people fall into when it comes to the one-hit wonder and that type of, success, is that they then go, okay, hey, my name's Camden. I had the one-hit wonder. I got the top song on the radio. I'm a genius. And because I'm a genius, I'm just going to keep being me. And I'm just going to write my songs and do all that. And I'm going to have number one hit because these hands are magic. This guitar is magic, whatever it is, right? Well, is that true? Is that guitar magic? Well, no, because then you wouldn't have had one hit. You would have had lots of hits already. What happened was there was some culmination of effort. I kind of already joked about this, the 10-year overnight success, right? Where you're putting in all your effort into this one thing, and this one thing worked. Now, what they do is they try to replicate genius, whereas you don't want to replicate that genius. You want to replicate the process that culminated into that genius. So another way to put this would be the idea of invoking the muse. I've talked about this before with the book, not The Art of War, The War of Art. There we go. Always mess those two up. Two great books. But in The War of Art, one of the things that he talks about is the idea of the Greek muse, this little fairy that would come over your shoulder and teach you how to do things and give you that artistic genius and those kind of things, and give you that one-hit wonder, right? Well, it's like, well, is there literally a creature like that? No. But how do you get that creature to show up? How do you get that genius to show up? And what he talks about is the best way to get that magical little fairy, that muse, to show up is to invoke the muse, to commit to getting that muse here every single time, committing to the work. I'm going to go through the same process every single day because the muse loves ritual. The magic creatures love ritual. And if you give them that ritual, then they're more likely to show up, right? Well, in the reality of that application, when we know that there's not magical little fairies and all that kind of stuff, but as you go into the reality there, focusing on the work, focusing on the ritual aspect means if you're writing a book, it's not, I'm going to wait for the genius to come to tell me what to write. I'm going to write every single day, and eventually that genius will come. And when you reframe the approach like that, you give yourself something much more manageable to continue that creative process. You're focusing on the things that actually led you to that genius. You're focusing on the mechanics that got you there, rather than just trying to replicate the genius itself. And that's the real key to continued creativity, is to focus on the things that led you to that creative moment, rather than trying to just take that actual creativity and replicate it again and again and again. Go back to that moment. One of the examples I'll use quickly before I wrap this up, I think back to 3 or 4 years ago, I had a moment where I had a little bit of an identity crisis or something, you could say. And I was thinking about how I used to feel like I had all these great business ideas, and there was all these problems I wanted to solve and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, gosh, did I miss the boat? Like, were all my entrepreneurial ideas just set for 8 years ago, 6 years ago, and now I'm done and I'm washed up. I'm never going to be able to replicate that again. And then I started thinking about it, and it's like, well, the times I'm thinking of, I was in college, so I'm surrounded by people who are very ambitious and have high hopes for themselves, right? So that's probably one. I also was in a bunch of business classes and economics classes, right? So that's another one. I was taking some classes in sustainable agriculture, talking about big problem solving, global warming, sustaining our food systems as we need to get to 8 billion people, all that kind of stuff, right? All those big, hairy problems, but people who were very confident they could solve those problems. So I'm around all of that. I'm also walking to and from campus, listening to podcasts. So I'm listening to, Freakonomics and Don Miller. I can't think of his podcast off my head. Don Miller's podcast, going through all these different business and entrepreneurship podcasts and problem solving, all this kind of stuff. And I'm reading books every night and all this kind of things. It's like, well, yeah, no wonder I was so full of ideas then. I was putting myself in a situation where I was going to come up with those ideas no matter what, because I was invoking the muse. I was going through the process. I was reading the books, all those kind of things. Thinking back to that 3 or 4 years ago when I thought I didn't have all those ideas, because I wasn't reading, I wasn't listening to podcasts, wasn't doing all of those different things, right? So recognize the things that actually contribute to your genius, that culmination of effort that creates that genius. Don't just try to replicate the genius itself. No, I threw a lot out there talking about creativity, but I hope you get a lot out of this. Creativity is, one of the brainstorming process is like one of the most fun aspects of business and problem solving. And it should be fun. And also you should be good at it because, we always need more innovation. We need better creative solutions to help solve problems. And that can help your business line. It can help to make the world a better place by solving those problems in a much better way, whether it's explosive innovation or incremental innovation. Throw out those bad ideas, make sure you get all the ideas out, force them out of your team, make sure that everyone has a high energy level coming into it. If you need to reframe things negatively using a pre-mortem, that's great. And then of course you need to reframe things positively. That magic wand solution, fantasy land, that's also a really useful place to be. So use these tools inside of your business with your team to help get all those ideas out. If you have any questions, of course, you can comment them down below. We'll get back to you. And if you enjoyed this, you got 2 great options. One, you could keep going the free route, what we joke is our DIY route, and enjoy the YouTube page and all of the great free trainings that we're putting out there from GBLP, as well as all of our podcasts with 10X Your Team with Cam and Otis. And then if you want to 10X your team, if you want to develop great leaders inside of your team so that you can have a more effective team that understands all of these different principles that I'm talking about, as well as everything else we talk about in our videos, that all comes back to GBLP, the Green Beret Leadership Program. So if you go to 10xyourteam.net/GBLP, you can sign up for the Green Beret Leadership Program, take your team through it, develop those great leaders inside of your team so that you can 10X your team's effectiveness and do your job. Focus on the thing that makes you great. Focus on your area of genius, that culmination of genius, rather than being distracted with all of the micromanaging and other BS that gets in the way. All right, give your team the tools they need to be successful on their own, so you can go be successful on your own doing your job too. And that's where that 10X your team really comes from, is giving your team those tools and then also giving yourself the freedom to go do your job as well, because that's what you're there for. So hope you enjoyed this. Again, that is at 10xyourteam.net/GBLP, and I'll see you next time for another free video, another great free excerpt from GBLP.